Danny Meehan and Dr. Mason West.
Welcome in to this episode of Bare Bones. I am Mason West, and joined right there, perfect timing, is Danny Meehan. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, Mr. Sorry, don't want to shortchange it. Dr. Mason.
I appreciate it.
No, you earned that, you son of a bitch. You get to be called doctor the rest of your life.
I did in fact earn it. And it's funny. Pretty much everyone, and I just always hated it, but like as soon as we graduated, everyone started signing. Like they went to a restaurant, it was like Doctor blah 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 blah. Yes, we earned it, but you know, it's just funny.
Just don't take yourself that seriously, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But we are here today to talk about the Bears and their upcoming game against the 49ers. And Danny, I want to open the floor to you first because
Sure.
I at least had the opportunity after the Thanksgiving 32-second debacle against the Lions to talk about why I wanted to move on from Eberflus. The Bears did in fact do that. We are now looking at the interim Thomas Brown Bears. So I'm just going to give you the floor to kind of just, give me 5-ish minutes of what you're thinking going forward, in terms of moving Eberflus and installing Thomas Brown, why that was important, if you thought so, et cetera, et cetera.
I think it's important just because it's clear that especially as quotes and stuff are starting to circulate and leave out of Hallis Hall, it's not just the players who are over it. And obviously we now have the very notorious tirade that Jaylon Johnson went on against Matt Eberflus, where he effectively banished him to the shadow realm, and Eberflus just had nothing to say and he left the room.
That's a real leader right there.
Yeah. And it just feels so necessary because you have to almost it's almost like it's a cancer, right? And this is the primary tumor. You just have to get rid of it in order for you to have a fighting chance. Now, I would argue that your biggest issue within this is that your owner is still the McCaskey clan and you don't know what you're going to get, but it seems we've turned over a new leaf and a new day has dawned where Kevin Warren is more than just the stadium guy, as it were, right? So it's clear he flexed some muscle, and he told, especially when you hear all the reports, right, he spent more time in the locker room post-game than he ever had in his career, like putting his arms around players, talking with some of the guys, talking with other members of the coaching staff, I believe is what I had read about. Like, it's clearly something they knew that needed to happen. And we still don't know who was allowed to, who wasn't allowed to fire whom,
right,
going into the season. It's because you get different stories from different people. There's no consistency within the answer. I'll be interested to see what Thomas Brown has because, I don't know about you, but I take the words of Andrew Whitworth a little bit seriously. That guy's a damn good player, and he called him very publicly on his X page or Twitter page, whatever you want to call it, offensive Mike Tomlin, not in terms of sustained success or ability or anything like
definitely.
that.
And he specifically said that in the tweet too.
In the tweet, yeah. But the manner in which he carries himself, the demeanor, the point of accountability, that clip of Tomlin when the offensive lineman is running up behind him and he essentially tells him to get his ass moving without much, if any, issue, and the guy took off, no questions asked. Okay, coach says, coach does. Do I know that he's the answer? I would gravitate towards probably not, because that would mean some of the same staff is being held over going forward. I think he's more or less probably interviewing for his next offensive play caller, offensive coordinator role. Now, he could blow the doors off this thing and make it a much harder decision going forward. That's not what I'm anticipating, but you could get the dead cat bounce, especially this weekend over a reeling 49ers team.
Yeah, so that's actually a perfect transition because we do want to talk about Thomas Brown a bit here. Just because, that's the biggest change, right? For our last couple of weeks, we saw that Matt Eberflus and some of his decisions led to losses. I mean, obviously there's other reasons for the losses too, but I mean, your head coach can't be the reason you lose, and he was multiple times. So, in your opinion, what would Thomas Brown have to do? Like, what would his resume for the next 5 games have to look like for you to say, man,
Um,
or is there anything that he could do?
I think that if he goes 4-1 or 5-0, which the likelihood of that not great, right? I think 3-2 it's interesting, but I think that's more padding his offensive play caller, offensive coordinator resume for the next one.
Sure.
And make no mistake, I'm not saying I don't want him to get the job. I just don't know that it's his time in Chicago.
Yeah, my mentality is something similar. I think for me, it's like 3-2 and upward. You're having a conversation with the caveats of, okay, how does Caleb keep progressing? How do the in-game decisions look? Are they significantly better than what we saw out of Eberflus? What does defense look like?
What do the pre-snap penalties look like? Man?
That's another big one for sure. So if all of those things are better in your 3-2 as, let's say, your floor, I think you have a real conversation. Obviously, and changes even more so if you go 4-1, 5-0.
Yeah, it's such a hard conversation to have because you don't want to just damn the guy outright because, stranger things have happened as recently as, Antonio Pierce winning over the locker room in Las Vegas. And we're seeing how that's going now.
That's so different.
Well, they also don't have a quarterback. The other thing I really need people to be cautioned about is the Caleb Williams numbers are inflated because they're throwing a ton. He's not being much more efficient with his throws. He's not being much more effective. He's just throwing more, which end all be all. Yes, he needs to throw more. He needs to learn get adjusted. But having a rookie quarterback throwing 45 times a game is not a recipe to win a football game.
Yeah, and at least for part of the issues I have with the anti-Thomas Brown conversation. Now, I'm not, and you'll see this in a little bit later if we're listening or watching live, that we actually have a segment for this. But the issues I have with the anti-Thomas Brown group is if you're going to say, well, he was passed over for Shane Waldron, so why would you now make him a head coach? When you can't also in the same breath say, well, I'm worried that this regime is going to make the wrong choice at head coach because they always make the wrong choice. So if you're going to say that they always make the wrong choice, wouldn't it be true that passing over Thomas Brown could have also been the wrong choice? Like, that's not – I'm not saying that he's the right choice, but you can't hold that as a negative against him. I also don't think you can hold it as a negative against him. Like was a part of this passing offense in the first, couple, 10 whatever weeks before he got elevated, because I don't know how much he was involved in that. And it seems like almost none of it, to be quite honest.
It seems like – it really seems like there was a very clear dividing line amongst even within the coaching staff almost.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's just guys trying to save their ass. What's the rules of business? Blame the guy who just got fired, blame the guy who just left the room kind of thing, or blame the guy who died. It's like it's always blaming someone else. But it's clear that something was just not right about this season. I'm interested actually to see, full disclosure, what Washington's version of this defense looks like.
Yeah, very interested in that.
Yeah, so
I do want to touch on one thing too you mentioned where you said one of your concerns would be Thomas Brown holding over members of this staff, which is possible. I'm curious as to why that's such a narrative right now, just because he didn't bring them in. And is it just because we're saying that he was around them this past year that he wants them? Because if anything, I would be more likely thinking that he's going to go back to his Rams days and try to pull from that.
I think that's probably the correct answer, if I'm being honest with you. It's more just like, is Kerry Washington staying? Or is, I don't know, does Chris Beatty have some sort of connection with him? And I'm not saying that'd be a bad thing. I'm just saying, I think it'd be worse to have holdovers from the staff. And I'm not saying there would be a lot, because I don't think there would be. This guy has been around the block. There's been, he was with revisionist analysis is not analysis. If you really go look at the names on that Carolina staff, that was a damn good coaching staff.
It was a strong staff. that just didn't do good.
It just didn't work out for a multitude of reasons. You can probably start looking at the top with David Tepper, which it's another talking point. Bears fans, be careful what you wish for. You get the multi-billionaire mogul who now has a new toy. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go over well.
Can't wait till Jeff Bezos writes a play on a napkin from the previous game and says, you have to run this next week.
Oh,
Not that Tepper did that. But to what you said, actually, this is a great transition to one of the quotes I wanted to bring up regarding holdover and, do you keep, do you not keep? Bears interim head coach Thomas Brown said in his first presser, if you are bad at your job, they move on from you. If you're good at your job, they give you a chance to stick around. If you're great, they elevate you. Now, obviously, we can use that talking point to go a lot of different ways, but to directly connect to what you just talked about, if that is his mentality, I would think he would assess that offensive staff and say, let's say for the sake of argument, yo, Kerry, I know you've been not great at making sure Caleb's feet are consistent. We're going to move on from you. Versus, hey, Kerry, I love what you did. I know that Caleb is doing this anyway. We're going to keep going there. So I would think that shows that. But also, I just think that mentality that he illustrated there, like nothing is handed to you. You deserve what you get. That'll be really interesting to see how that plays forward.
And I would like to apologize. I realized I said Kerry Washington, which I believe is the main actor from Scandal.
I was going to let that ride, but
no, I was sitting here like, did I say Kerry? No, it's Kerry Joseph.
Yeah. Jeez. Another quote that I wanted to bring up. This is actually from Kyle Shanahan on Caleb Williams. I mean, as talented as there is, the stuff you saw in college, you see in the NFL. As good of a thrower as there is, born to play the position, got the athletic ability to do whatever, has the speed to do whatever. Goes on to say that he's been playing, as in Caleb, has been playing his best ball the last few weeks. Does this mean anything, or is this, and I don't mean like head coach, by the way, I'm just saying like a knowledgeable person talking about Caleb, or is this the Bill Belichick talk nice about your opponent thing?
I mean, I'm inclined to think it's more like game recognized game. Like when Kyle Shanahan was coming up and everyone was like, why isn't Kyle Shanahan good? Which is the funniest thing with Bears fans wanting Ben Johnson. We'll get to that. Like the reason why Kyle Shanahan lasted forever while being the offensive coordinator, not interviewing anywhere, is because he knew he was getting the Niners job. That's what happened. But Shanahan was well known. Everybody knew he was eventually going to be one of the next spoken for, the prince who was crowned kind of offensive coordinator, savant, whatever you will, head coach. But I think it's sure these guys all watch film, right? Like he probably broke down some Caleb film, was just like, yeah, that's what that looks like. And he's not dumb. He's citing it and he's being honest about it.
Versus who everyone wants, potential Bill Belichick, who apparently just rips Caleb whenever he can, which and also, by the way, yep, exactly. Apparently interviewed for the which job, Danny?
The UNC Tar Heels opening, which, going from Mac Brown, who is 700 years old, to Bill Belichick, who is like 685 years old, is definitely a choice.
And I have to think that essentially it's more of this is one of the few teams that probably is going to just interview me right now. And this is me sticking my flag in the sand saying, by the way, I'm open for business. Come talk to me. And a worst case scenario fallback, I'll go to UNC for a year and then go back to the NFL so I can get the shoe.
Find it strange, the weird talking points that are coming out about Belichick? Like there's these weird reports that he still lives in the film room and stuff. Like this guy's a junkie. Like this is his drug. He doesn't know what else to do with his life. His kids are grown and coaching and not a part of, I believe are part of the staff, right? In New England under Gerard Mayo.
Something like that.
But he doesn't have anything else to do. He's got a girlfriend that's 10 years younger than I am.
To me, it sounds like, remember when Mike McCarthy spent that year in a bunker watching film, apparently, and then all these reports and a special came out and talking about how he was still involved in the game and chewing up film, and essentially it was just a piece to say, hey, come hire me.
And we all watched Mike McCarthy's offense, and we're like, it's still the Mike McCarthy offense.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing happened. Nothing changed.
Nothing changed.
All right. Eric Washington spoke today. Says he called the defense during the preseason, which we pretty much all knew. He also called the defense in Carolina for the most of the 2018 season before Ron Vera took over those duties late in that season. I don't know about you. I would expect a lot more blitzing because there was a lot of that in the preseason.
I would expect a lot more maybe not a lot more, but what would feel like a lot more because that's more of his nature.
I was also going to say, compared to Eberflus, like what was his blitz percentage? Like it had to be tiny.
4,
right?
4,
so
5,
like
maybe.
If you go from 4 to 8, you've gone up 100%.
You doubled it.
So I'm excited about the aggressiveness because that's always, I think you and I have both talked about this in terms of how much we hate this scheme because of how passive it is.
I mean, hate is the wrong word.
I hate.
Does it fit my aesthetic? No, but it's also, I've said it on the show and I'll say it again. The reason the Eberflus hire at the time didn't seem as bad was because the version of football that you and I, Mason, being 30 in our 30s, right? What is the only good era of Bears football?
When you watched Mitch Trubisky play.
Yes, you got it. And Matt Nagy not being hired to run the I formation.
Exactly. But obviously it was the Lovie Smith, yeah.
And Lovie was the cover 2 guy. It was a place of comfort. Of this I know works. If it's done right, it'll work again. And I said even at the time, like it could be wrong. And it was wrong. And I'm happy to own my wrongness. Believe me, when you do this and you talk and you go on Twitter and whatnot, you're going to be wrong about stuff way more than you're right. Because you're willing to put every opinion that enters your dumb cranium out for the world to fucking see. But I hope it's different. My aesthetic of defense is much more gravitates towards like what Jonathan Gannon doing in Arizona is fun as hell. The Brian Flores is just my spirit animal, and that guy is doing things with defense that I could see be maddening as a player because he's asking you to do a lot.
Yeah. But
it's fun as hell as a tape evaluator. It's great.
Well, and to give us a bit of credit, by the way. So back in 2022, right? Or that was when he was hired. These are the head coaches that got new jobs that year. And also, so Lovie Smith, who is no longer with the Texans. Eberflus, obviously. Doug Peterson, who is probably very close to leaving the Jaguars.
The fact that he's not fired is kind of amazing.
Don't get it, but it's insane. Brian Dable, who I was very anti. I think you can go back and listen to that.
Same. Wanted
nothing to do with Dable, who's probably going to get fired this year. Maybe Kevin O'Connell. That's one of the ones where you're like,
I was wrong. I thought it was too new. I was like, he's never called plays before. This is too new. He needs to do it.
Because you saw that time and time again where someone tries to pull from the McVay tree, like this will work just because you had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. And we both thought that was going to be the case here. And it turned out he was a dude. But to go on, Mike McDaniel, kind of the same thing, right? Just didn't call plays, was the run game guy more so with the 49ers. And, mixed, they have done well. I mean, they haven't really won what you want to win, but Mike McDaniel is not right. And Nathaniel Hackett. Pretty happy about that. Dennis Allen is fired.
So I've got a weird take about McDaniel, if I may.
What's that?
I think what he's great at is fun as hell. And the Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, et cetera, experience is great for like people who love Madden in fantasy football, which don't look now. The Dolphins are dead last in explosive plays this year. And that's a Tua thing too, or Tua was gone for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was.
Yeah, but if your offense is so specific that you need one very particular type of quarterback to run it, isn't that a problem?
It is. And what I was going to say is the brand of football he plays is totally unserious. It's to score points. It's to light people up on the scoreboard, and it looks great for fantasy, and it looks great for the casual viewer because most people in our chat, or most people aren't us on Bare Bones or on the Second City Gridiron Network, or like things like that. We're junkies who would much prefer defenses to be allowed to do a little bit more than what they're allowed to do at the moment. Yeah. The average casual fan isn't that way. They would rather scores all be 42-39.
Gross.
Or, But Mike McDaniel, while fun and great, and I want him to succeed, especially because he is like that middle-aged or elder millennial, however you want to tag him, and he did the Mike Jones thing at the Combine. It's fun, but I really would not be shocked if going into next offseason he's looking for a new job.
Just to round out that list, like I said, Nathaniel Hackett, Dennis Allen, Josh McDaniels, and then Todd Bowles. So, Todd Bowles is fine. So out of those 10, 2 if you want to give it to Mike McDaniel, maybe 3 if you want to give it to Todd Bowles, are still there and will be there next year.
I think Todd Bowles is what I, at my heart of hearts, was hoping Eberflus would be, just the stabilizer. Like, this guy isn't going to fuck everything up for you.
And ultimately, you look at what that Tampa Bay team is. They are a team that keeps scraping by. So anyway, I bring all this up to give us a little pat on the back and say, it's fine to be wrong about Eberflus, because if you look at the rest of the individuals that were hired that year, it's not like you missed out on. There was 4 other people you should have hired. There's like maybe 2.
Right. No, 100%.
Last little bit here before we get to this little new category we're going to break out. You alluded to this a bit. Interim offensive coordinator Chris Beatty will take on a larger role, helping Thomas Brown with game management and clock management. Beatty said that it's something he's very comfortable with, going back to being a high school coach. Beatty says they need to be a play ahead, acknowledge that it was Beatty and Brown. Sorry, acknowledge that it was a problem. Beatty and Brown coached together at Wisconsin in 2014, where Beatty's responsibilities included clock and game management. And when Brown took over the OC duties a few weeks ago to start discussing ways in which the team could improve in that area, and when Brown took over as head coach, he officially assigned those duties to Beatty. So that's very interesting. You talked about how well do they know each other, stuff like that. Maybe that's a holdover if Brown got hired. But
sure,
it's silly that I like this, but I like that this is being very specifically addressed and could actually improve.
So I think that's kind of a thing under this new like interim regime you might see, is a very direct, candid approach to this. Because honestly, even listen to Thomas Brown. He's not lying to you or holding secrets. He's telling you exactly what's on his mind. Hi.
No, I 100% agree with that. And there's going to be transparency, I think, the rest of these next 5 weeks, which is refreshing. But also, why do they care? Because the head coach is gone. There's a good chance they're not going to be there next year, where it essentially saying, hey, this is why you should hire me for my next job, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right. Last little bit here again, and this is going to be a new part we're just going to do every week and see if something changes. If nothing changes, then we're just going to move on. We're throwing together our head coach wish list and just going to basically discuss. We're not going to really discuss it. We're just going to list them. So, Danny, who are your top 5?
Top 5 in order for me would be Ben Johnson, Brian Flores, Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, and Drew Petzing, which you missed an N in his name, jerk.
Oh, I did. I put this together as, if you know, based on when I texted you, like right before we went on this. So you can also see that the head coach wish list is like off center, and Joe Brady's name is huge. And I hate this, but I wanted to get this up here. I need a producer. Mine was Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Thomas Brown, Joe Brady, and Liam Cohen. So some similarities on those lists. And I want to emphasize these are written in metaphorical pencil. The whole point of this is that it's probably going to shift over the next 5 weeks. Like, I would highlight in particular Thomas Brown for me. Like, yes, this next 5 weeks really matter in terms of, does he move up to number 2 or does he go off the list entirely? The other thing I want to highlight, we are not in the coaching interviews, and that's the most important part of this. And for example, I think we both talked about, me more than you, how I thought Shane Waldron would be good as an offensive coordinator. I don't know what he possibly did in that interview to make them think he was the guy, though, because every time I've heard him talk, I'm like, you're an idiot.
Why are you dumb? Be less dumb.
So, these lists are based off of what we know, and what we know is also just tape and stuff like that. We
also did not include the Mike Florio rumor of Kyle Shanahan being floated, or the idea that because Kevin Warren was in Minnesota at the same time as Kevin Stefanski, that maybe, just maybe, you could trade for like a Kevin Stefanski or something. Those guys are under contract with their current teams. Yeah. I think it'd be a disingenuous an invalid list almost to include them at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Now, if something comes out where it's imminent that Kevin Stefanski's going to get fired, then it's a different conversation and story.
Between the two, I think almost Stefanski would be more likely, only because you have Mike Vrabel there as a consultant, and it's just like, oh, we could elevate you. You're a good head coach, or we think you are. So like,
and he is a good head. Vrabel is a good head coach.
Yeah,
like, I think he made the playoffs 3 out of the 6 seasons he was in Tennessee, and the first year was a teardown, and the 2 after that were like Tannehill being hurt, right?
The other thing to highlight there would be weren't a couple of the times he missed when Arthur Smith was no longer there.
Yeah, Arthur Smith left for those 2 years before he got fired.
Right. So, and we're now going down a road that we don't necessarily need to go, but that's one of my concerns with a Mike Vrabel is if, let's say, Caleb is who we think he's going to be, and that next offensive coordinator moves on, do you fill it with someone who can continue doing what you need to do, or do you end up like the Tennessee Titans where now you're missing the playoffs?
Well, the difference is Caleb is not Ryan Tannehill, right? The hope is that he's much more akin to one of the 5 or 6 best in the league, and not a guy who, while he played at an MVP level at times, not a guy who just peppers the middle of the field based off of play action and having an all-time great historic running back in the backfield.
Yeah, I'm worried about the idea that you're banking, which I think he's going to be obviously great, but you shouldn't have to just have your guy go beast mode all the time. Like, and we saw that with even like Josh Allen, where he is still Josh Allen, but they ended up moving on for their offensive coordinator last year because the offense was not acting how they wanted to, and then they elevated Joe Brady.
Yeah, the offense that was top 5 in literally every metric was just not doing what they wanted.
But they moved on.
No, I get you. I just find it. I find it funny. We talk about like the Ken Dorsey play caller experience is like the worst thing on the planet. This guy had a top 5 offense in like every category possible.
Arguably, though, aesthetically, do you prefer the Joe Brady version, or did you like the Ken Dorsey version more?
Probably the Joe Brady. He embraces running a little bit more. But truth be told, Joe Brady is one of the guys I would just not even sniff around for this job as a Bears fan. I don't want anything to do with him.
That'll be good for another show. Time to move on. Training room roundup. I can go to this, and we can. All right. So there's a lot of unknowns going on here. Keenan Allen participated full, so we can move on from that. There's a lot going on, right? Ryan Bates and Roschon are both out with concussions. They're going to be out. I can tell you right now, they're going to be out. Elijah Hicks still didn't practice with that ankle. I believe he will also be out. The 2 really that are up in the air for me are going to be DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift. The thing that's hard here, in terms of at least the chart, is because we don't know how Thomas Brown operates, right? Thomas Brown might be the coach that says, dude, DJ, you don't need to practice at all this week. I know you're good. Same thing with DeAndre, right? I just don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to manage. And God, the DNP, though, for every practice going into Thursday is not great.
So look at the Friday. The
Friday is going to be your tell-all.
Yeah, if the Fridays are DNP, you're leaning more towards them out. My guess is, just based off of how they finished that last game and what I believe is going on with both of their quads, is that if you see limited, that you'll see limiteds.
There's nothing wrong with limited. Limited is the new probable.
Right.
Like, it's when you go from limited to like DNPs, and you got to worry because that's when you're like questionable to doubtful.
Exactly. The only other ones to highlight: Coleman Shelton, who went down for a bit in that last game, limited, believe he'll play, and then Darnell Wright was full, which is fantastic. So now for the 49ers. There's a lot here. There's the obvious ones that for people who are on IR, we're not going to really heavily discuss that. But, I mean, Nick Bosa didn't participate, and they also still don't have their Thursday one up on this site for some reason. But Trent Williams and He's got personal stuff in addition to the ankle. Jordan Mason is eventually going to be put on IR. CMC is on IR. I mean, you got Hufanga limited. I mean, this list is ridiculous.
The list is crazy, and prayers out for Trent and his family, man. Trenton Jr., his son, was born as a stillborn, and that's why he's been not participating in practice and stuff. Just heartbreaking. Yeah.
And we'll touch on this a bit later, but really, I mean, this 49ers team is just emotionally, physically just beat to hell. You're going to have probably your Bay, Isaac Arendo starting at running back. You're already missing Ayuk. If Nick Bosa can't go, your pass rush is way different. I mean, compare this defensive line to what it was 2 years ago. Like, it is just a shadow of its former self.
Yeah, it's everything, man. Like, your Debo's older, Kittle's older, Ayuk is gone. Like, Brock has been hurt off and on all year, and Brock is better than a lot of people want to give him credit for. It's just they're trying to overcome a lot.
All right, that's training room. We're going to do a quick break, hear from Kombucha, and then we'll get back into it.
Instrumental to athletic performance and recovery. Our gut is in essence a second brain, and health researchers are continually uncovering new benefits of probiotics, scientifically connecting the dots between gut health, reduced inflammation, and stronger immunity. Kombucha is a tasty, clean label, functional option to easily add probiotics into any athlete's routine. We call it balancing your brains.
Kombucha is a premium performance-focused kombucha crafted specifically for athletes and active individuals. This revitalizing beverage blends the traditional benefits of kombucha with nutritional enhancements to support energy, hydration, and recovery. Made from organic teas and infused with natural electrolytes, kombucha offers a delicious and effective solution to maintain peak performance, better athletic performance, increased nutrient absorption, improve wellness, and improve cognitive stamina. Go ahead and use code BEAR-GUT-CHECK, BEAR, gut-check, in order to get 15% off your order.
You can stay over here.
Not BARE gut check?
No. No bearing your gut. We are having our bare animal guts. All right. I don't know.
That break came at a perfect time because my Instacart order was dropped off right as the break started.
Oh, perfect. Look at that.
Fantastic.
Knee-jerk reaction. One hot take going into next week. Mine is mostly I have no idea what to expect over the next 5 weeks, but I do expect this game against the 49ers to have a different feel than we thought back in August for the reasons we mentioned before, where this 49ers team is depleted of talent right now, is depleted of the emotional energy you need. There's all these rumors swirling around. It's just not the same 49ers. And if anything right now, like you mentioned that the dead cat bounce, the Bears have a probably renewed sense of energy going into this game.
A renewed sense of energy and a renewed sense of identity, because I'm sure that they feel much more like identified with this new coaching staff or the promoted coaching staff. Not new. No one's new. It's still all the same people in the buildings. But
what is yours?
It's honestly kind of the same, that I have no idea what to expect. I could see the dead cat bounce just as easily. I could see Isaac Guarendo going off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I'm trying to trade for him right now in a dynasty league just so I can take advantage for the rest of the year.
I claimed him in all 3 of my redraft leagues.
And that's the thing. We've seen it time and time again that the 49ers usually are able to just take a running back and plug them in. And then they do well, they get a contract somewhere else, and then they suck somewhere else. Or they do okay.
Yeah. That's the Shanahan way, going back to Papa Shanahan.
To be perfectly honest, something brutally honest. For me, the Bears' run game is brutal and is likely to get outshone by a depleted 49ers team. Technically, the Bears and 49ers are tied with 0 EPA per rush, 11th overall. But the 49ers rank 7th in rushing and 15th in rushing yards, and 15th in rushing touchdowns, even without CMC most of the year. DeAndre Swift still ranks dead last in rushing yards over expected. This isn't just the old Swift either.
Still?
In week 13, he ranks 5th worst with -14.
I didn't realize he was still that low on negative yards, or in terms of yards expected per rush.
And then week 12, he was 2nd worst with -27. This is still happening. And that's because he gets an amazing run that it was expected because the hole is actually there. But anytime that you just see it all time and time again with him that he gets a 1 yard run, 0 yards, -2, even though there's a hole because he just tries to bounce it outside. Meanwhile,
he budget Saquon Barkley, man. He loves to try to balance everything without.
Meanwhile, I believe Isaac Orendo and Israel Abanikata, who actually I liked coming out of Pitt.
Abanikata coming out of Pitt, yeah.
Will pick up where CMC and Jordan Mason left off. The Niners extended Colton McKivitz, their left guard, re-signed John Feliciano, and drafted third-round guard Dominic Pooney this offseason. Pooney has been outstanding through his first 12 games, showing the mobility you need in that Shanahan scheme. Trent Williams, still one of the best offensive linemen, but probably isn't going to play. But Jalen Moore, who stepped in, is repping a 73.5 run block rate per PFF. Pooney's at 80.5. McKivitz is at 69.1. They're good. Really, their weakest point is center, but Brendel. But his issues are more in pass blocking. So that being said, they can run block.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot of what was going through my head for this is and it's my to be perfectly honest, change as you were saying that this offense is going to have to be carried by, as much as I loathe it for a rookie quarterback, but a rookie throwing the football.
Yep.
Like it's so obvious and it just sucks because you don't know the status of DJ Moore. You don't know the status of, what even is this going to look like going forward? Like you have an idea, like a basic understanding, but this could be something where it's just like completely new. Because you just have no idea what to expect of this new coaching staff or this replacement coaching staff.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to remember that, even though Brown may have been the offensive coordinator in a way in charge of the offense, it still was under what Matt Eberflus wanted in terms of execution, in terms of decisions on fourth downs, in terms of, just the flow of the game. So at the end of the day, and same thing even when Thomas Brown was, offensive coordinator with the Panthers. Mm-hmm. I mean, right, it was under an offensive head coach, but still had to connect to that. We have no idea what Thomas Brown wants to do, truly.
Right, and he could want to ground about. I mean, the guy is a running back by trade. That's what he ended up being coming out of college when he was coming out of Georgia years ago, or I want to say.
I think that's right. Yeah. All right. Well, ain't this humorous? Something quirky or funny? Mine. Brock Purdy's total EPA, 9th best in the NFL with 61.9, 13th overall in EPA per play. He's 9th overall in completion percentage, above expectation. So now, he does have one less passing touchdown than Caleb and only 95 more passing yards. But, my point is, without Ayuk, without CMC most of the year, Kittle's in and out, the offensive line's shuffling, Purdy's still efficient as hell, and I've shifted my mentality on him. I still think that if he ended up with the Giants, I don't think Purdy is who we think he is. But at the same time, I think because of where he ended up, he is able to hone himself into now a very solid, if not very good quarterback who can hold his own.
He's a damn good quarterback, Mason. This again, we use the term system quarterback like it's such a negative on these guys. When it's like, why? What's wrong with being good within a system? You know who else was a system quarterback? Drew Brees was a system quarterback forever. And we seem to remember him as one of the 5 to 6 greatest quarterbacks to ever live. But we don't hold it against him that it was in Sean Payton's system where he was most productive for the majority of his career, right?
No, and at the end of the day, right, it becomes about draft pedigree, and you kind of forgot what he was before he got there, right?
Mm-hmm. You forgot that he tore his shoulder up for San Diego, and he had to really be he was a reclamation project of sorts, and they were willing and ready to move on because they had just drafted Phillip Rivers in the first round out of NC State.
Yeah, and we just choose to ignore that kind of, which is a shame. And like I said, I'll never get to see this, but do I think if you just took Brock Purdy and plugged him in on the Panthers, do the Panthers get better all of a sudden? I don't know still. I'm not sure of that, but all I can say is at least with how with this team, which again, without all those things, like everyone says, you have Ayuk, you have CMC. No, you don't. And he's still, again, ninth overall in completion percent above expectation, as well as EPA.
I think so much of it is just for him, at least. It's the aesthetic behind it on top of draft pedigree. He's little. He doesn't have the greatest arm. Like, he's got some I'm going to refrain from using the word I would typically use in this situation, but he got enough stupid in his game where it works out to his benefit. like, and it feels like a lot of it is luck and being drawn up by Shanahan, when the truth of the matter is Garoppolo never did this, and Garoppolo was operating in that same system.
Yeah. The team is better with Purdy than it was with Garoppolo. Just is what, and obviously leaps and bounds better than it was with Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what was your discreamers?
Just how we all now feel some sort of sense of renewment now that just the bad guy, the idiot's out of the building.
The bad man's gone.
The bad man's gone. But the truth of the matter is, like, for as bad as coaching decisions were, and yes, he stole defeat from the jaws of victory on a number of occasions. I mean, he had back-to-back weeks of blocked field goals to lose the football games. But the long and the short of it is, players still got to play, man. It's not to me at least, it's not a head coach's job to get DJ Moore or Keenan Allen or Cole Kmet up to want to play football. You're all extended. You all got your money. You're all grown-ass, proven veterans in this league with skins on the wall. No coach should have to get you up to be performing at your best. Same goes for someone like Montez Sweat or Tremaine Edmonds, anyone like that. A coach's job is to develop and get those work habits out of the younger guys, a Caleb Williams, Roshan Johnson, things like that.
Sure. I agree with you like 90%. Did you watch the Hard Knocks from a couple days ago?
The one about the AFC North?
Yeah.
I haven't tuned in, but I'm excited because I need Tomlin.
Okay, right where I'm going. So listening to, and here's my thing. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't as deep as you want it to be. Let's be real, because you're spreading across 4 teams, and it's Hard Knocks. But everything Tomlin says in terms of what he says to the team and all that, like, and the accountability of, I'm sure, what they don't show for certain players. I mean, we joke all the time, right? I think you said, like, Tomlin is basically a caretaker for disgruntled wide receivers. I think you said it differently. We talked about it before.
Yeah, something to that effect. Yeah.
Like, the things he does with George, even a little bit with George Pickens in that, like, I mean, yes, he's only whatever he's now, 30-year guy, but you still need your head coach to right the ship or even get your crew in line if they start to deviate. Yes, I need DJ Moore to be able to do that on his own, but if and when he can't, I need my head coach to be able to smack him upside the head and say, like, get along or get out. So that's my 10% I don't necessarily agree with, because you see what Mike Tomlin does it, and that's who Eberflus is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the Colts hits guy, and he wasn't.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. I guess I struggle with the idea of the $28 million a year wide receiver needing to be told to get his ass up and do his job. Like that,
human.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm operating in a vacuum there.
Yeah. But you're right. You should be able to wipe your tears with your massive check and then go out and play the game. All right. We got a break here, and then we're going to move on. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Win over 5 million with over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won. Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. I've used multiple sites and apps to enhance my game day, and Underdog is quite unique. Something pretty cool is their vulture protection. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and they get vultured, they will rescue your entry. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if any early injury causes your entry to lose. With Underdog's double flex option, you can even take 2 L's and still have your entry be a win. This season, Underdog is going to be running a special, promo, or bonus almost every single day, such as Profit Boost, discounts, or free picks. Free picks, basically sure thing. A player just has to get higher than, zero point 0.5 passing yards for that selection to win. Plus, all new users get a free pick. Download the app today and use code CITY, C-I-T-Y, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every hair-raising touchdown, just selects higher or lower on Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus, Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Avoid in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncdgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 3342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
So before we move on to what you need to know, I see this comment in here from the Crooked Commish that said Mostert did okay in Miami. The easy low-hanging fruit here, if we're talking about just the Shanahan tree, go back to his dad. Clinton Portis was traded for Champ Bailey. And Clinton Portis ran for like 11,000 yards or something in his career. And that was going to Washington. So, yes, Mostert had a great year last year. Your easy answer to shut me up would have been Clinton Portis. Know your history. Get out of my DMs.
What you need to know, some just important facts, storylines about the upcoming game.
Starting to think that maybe the 49ers are whiners, complaining a little bit too much about the referee.
That's just the only thing I found that talked about 49ers for a sound clip.
God, that was painful. That was like do you remember the Indiana sportscaster and Reggie Miller from 3, and boom goes the dynamite. Like, like no emotion, just yep, and boom goes the dynamite.
The Bears-49ers rivalry has been played 69 times, with the Bears winning 33 of those games and San Francisco winning 35. They also tied once. The last time the Bears played the 49ers, they won 19-10 in a monsoon and got many of us hot and bothered about the 2022 team. 49ers, as we mentioned, have a ton of injuries, emotionally dragged out contract disputes, beset with personal tragedies. We mentioned Trent Williams, but also Tre'Davious Ward, unfortunately, also lost his daughter earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Seem to be a bit old and emotionally tired. The Niners are 5-7 and on the verge of playoff elimination with a 6% chance to make it. The 49ers futures of Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Juszczyk, Williams, John Hargrave, Greenlaw, Ward, and then safety Funga are very much in question. They have 2 games in the next 5 days. I would hate to be on that 49ers team.
And that's on top of all the emotional stuff, Mason. You're talking about they've just played a lot of football the last few seasons.
Yeah.
Like I was just saying, you get the offseason to recover, but you don't understand when you're playing into February, your offseason's shorter.
Yeah.
And the body is just, you still are getting into these car wrecks every Sunday or every week. Sunday, Monday, Thursday, sometimes Saturday, pick your day. But
there's a reason why the losing Super Bowl team often has that down next year. There's a reason Manti Te'o in the preseason, and he got made fun of for saying this, said he thought the 49ers would suffer this year because they're probably going to be emotionally drained for everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I got some questions for you. You ready?
Of course you do. Is it a segment of Bare Bones unless Dan gets questions from Mason?
And you just have to answer them and be put on the spot because they're weird questions.
Because the outline does not include these questions. It's just...
I want your raw emotional reaction. All right. In 2 to 3 sentences, you can't say injuries. What is wrong with the 49ers? And you've already kind of touched on this.
Lots of football has been played. So it's not just injury. It's the whole dynamic of being just beat up through the course of a couple years, along with everything that's just gone on off the field. You got these rumblings of Kyle Shanahan. Is he available for trades? You got the Trent Williams and Tre'Davious Ward stuff going on. It's like, and then the stuff with the receiver show, et cetera, et cetera. It's just been a lot over the past few years. And it's like, I think it all just kind of took its toll finally.
I think that's a perfect answer. Next one. Do you expect the target share amongst Bears wide receivers to look different this week?
Because of injury potential?
However you want to interpret the question.
No, not really, because I kind of still fully expect the entirety of the wide receiver core to kind of play.
my brain, and this, I wrote this before the injuries really popped up. My brain went more to, I'm curious if, in terms of how the offense is constructed, because I think Keenan Allen gets more targets than he should and is playing in 12 personnel more than he should. How much of that was coming from higher up, and does that potentially change at all with Thomas Brown? Like, does Thomas Brown still want Keenan Allen in 12 personnel?
That's an excellent question. The other thing, just while we're on the topic of wide receivers, Rome is still wrong like 70% of the time that he's playing.
So
he's just wrong all the time in what he's doing.
He just gets yelled at before the play, like, no, you're over there.
He doesn't understand landmarks. He doesn't understand depth. He doesn't understand throttling up, throttling down. He doesn't understand how to be an NFL wide receiver. He's just freakishly talented.
Which isn't to take away anything from Rome or say he won't be good, but right now he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. So it's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know how to not, or how to hide that other than just make him the X, where he was just like, okay, just bear with me. I'm not saying he's Antonio Brown. Him and Antonio Brown are nothing alike as wide receivers. And he also didn't get cracked in the noodle by Vontaze Burfict to ruin his whole life. Antonio Brown, when he was playing, wasn't just abiding by the playbook and doing what he wanted. Him and Ben had some sort of instinct connection where it was just playing football. And Ben that's why there's scramble drill work. So Ben would wait for the play to break down. He'd have the 5 guys hanging off of him, and then he would throw and find AB, and AB would do AB stuff because he was a hellaciously talented wide receiver. And that's what would happen. I wonder, would it behoove the Bears to almost just make him the de facto X, and like for scramble drills and stuff, just let him go play football?
I would also say, especially because of what the rest of this year means anyway.
Right. Like,
you're not, the wins don't matter specifically. So it's not like you like, okay, we got to get this third down. Obviously, yes, you learn to win. I agree with you on all that stuff. But like, what is more valuable, that or having him learn while playing?
And the thing is, if you put him at the true X and it results in more production, what does that probably lead to? Probably leads to more winning.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Rome is frustrating because he's clearly the most gifted receiver on this team, including DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the best, but not the most gifted. Mm-hmm. But he's also the most frustrating because he's just wrong all the time.
Where does Brock Purdy rank amongst QBs, roughly?
Ooh, it's a tough question. 12 in that realm.
Who is more likely to be on the 2025 Bears roster, Coleman Shelton or Tevin Jenkins? And what does the odd one out have to do to change that, if at all possible?
I think the more likely one is probably Coleman Shelton, but that's only because I think there's a dearth of centers in this league. It's not a great center draft again.
Yeah.
And truth be told, he's been
better.
Fine. He's been better. He's been fine. Especially when you put the 2 enormous behemoths next to him and you can kind of hide the fact that he's a tiny center. Like, it worked out a little bit better than putting him next to, Tevin and Nate Davis, who are smaller, more finesse line.
I would agree with that. And I think at this point in time, to answer my own question, I don't really think there's anything Tevin can do to really get onto the team.
Unless he's willing to settle for like a 1 year, prove it. Like,
there's nothing he could play the next 5 games, and you just aren't confident in him enough to do that. So yeah, unless he's willing to take like a less than I think he's gonna get on the open market. Mm-hmm. Last question. What is one thing you need to see Caleb to do this game that would be, quote unquote, taking another step?
Honestly, there's not a whole lot that I don't believe him to be able to do. Maybe have an end-to-end good game. Because even against the Lions, he was not good in the first half, right? Like I'm saying, God, I feel like I'm on repeat or reliving deja vu. Like we would have the same conversation for Mitch or for Justin. But I want him to be good from the time the ball is snapped to the time the clocks showed quad zeros.
I think that's an excellent answer. Love it, hate it, rehabilitate it. Matchup or specific dynamic we love, one we hate, and one that if we were the coach, we'd focus on fixing this week. My love, the chance to score more and move the ball here. The 49ers rank 24th in the NFL with an average of 24.6 points per game allowed. They rank 26th in opponent third down conversion percentage, and they rank 31st in opponent red zone scoring percentage.
Those are good factoids. My love it is one we've picked at a couple times here, but a depleted 49ers secondary depleted 49ers receiving corps versus the Bears secondary. Tyreek Stevenson is what he is at this point. He's a maddeningly frustrating, physically gifted player.
Likes to trip
Jalen
sidelines.
Yes, and stick his finger in people's face masks and not learn his lessons and whatever. Terrell Smith, I think, is a representative NFL corner. I think Jaquan, is Jaquan back? No, no, he can't. He's on IR, right?
Oh, he's on IR. He can come back, I think, starting next week.
But I think Kevin Byard's been a revelation of sorts. He's been really good.
He's been solid throughout, just solid, consistent.
And Iron Man, the guy doesn't miss time. Yeah. And Jalen Johnson he's Jalen.
I'm really excited, by the way, for draft season because you get to just look at safeties all draft season because they need to take a safety, whether it's to replace Kevin Byard eventually.
You say me that I get to do it?
Yeah, and you get to talk about because last year, it was like you throw a safety into the draft and the mock draft because it's like that's your shtick, but now it's like you get to really mock a safety.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch all the box safeties and just pair them with Jaquan Brisker because who needs to cover when you can just hit things?
Exactly.
Do we know what Dante Whitner's up to?
Why did I put this here? Oh, I meant to say this. I'm gonna skip it. Whatever. All right. Hey, I hate the Bears run D. It's just, I know it's on repeat, but
it's awful.
And then you compare that with the 49ers, who even without CMC most of the year, I know Jordan Mason is solid, but it's Jordan Mason. Come on, let's not make it anything more than he is. They are 8th in rushing play percent, 6th in yards per rush, 7th in rushing yards per game, and 15th in rushing. I don't know what that last one was. I wrote the same thing twice. But anyway, they're a really good. They're a really good run team. Look, guys, this week has been a week from hell. My wife was out of town. I've been watching the dogs all by myself. So I'm at the clinic at 6 a.m., which means I'm up at 3:30 a.m. We interviewed 2 people for a new position. This week sucks. Bear with me.
And bear with us.
How about you throw out your hates?
I just hate the matchup against Kyle Shanahan in general.
Hey, what do you mean? Thomas Brown is going to out-chess him.
Yeah, out-chess him? Is that correct vernacular?
No, it's absolutely not.
It's everything about the defense lately has just not been good. The sweat effect is effectively, to me, until proven otherwise, DOA. It's
too much deodorant. You're so welcome.
My daughter agrees with you. But it's like he hasn't been the multiplier like he was last year. No. And I know he's dealing with the foot sprain or whatever, and it's evident, especially on a couple weeks ago, where it's like he got called for the offsides when everyone else was lined up, and he is visibly just not moving the way he should. But at a certain point, if you're healthy enough to play, the excuses aren't valid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't like Kyle Shanahan against this iteration of the Bears defense, unless Eric Washington has got something up his sleeve that I'm completely unaware of.
It must be nice to have Washington on your side. If people understand that, thumbs up, you're a cool person. All right, rehabilitate. Mine is the field position battle. I just feel like every time the Bears are just inside their own 20, besides an occasional turnover that happens. But I mean, I feel like it's once a game that they're just on their goal line. And it's really difficult to drive 99 yards. I just don't love how consistently punts are just let bounce and downed inside the 5, that punts are not returned, kicks are not returned, all this stuff. And then obviously when you're not moving the ball as an offense, like they weren't in the first half against the Lions, you're going to lose that battle. So start to win that.
My rehabilitate was actually kind of done by the fact that they fired the guy in charge. Was the entire approach to how you're going about this season. The coaching staff had to change. Everything about your assessment of this team, how your development plan is, everything had to change. They should not be 4-8. We should not be talking about draft positioning again. You were supposed to win football games this year. Now, could you argue that they should have fired him and hired the offensive mind to go with the new quarterback going into the season? Yes, that argument can and has been made. They chose to not do that. The fact that they're still losing football games at the rate that they are is inexcusable. Yes, it's something to do with coaching. It's also the players need to be better. Mm-hmm. Flat out. Like, I can only make so many excuses and blame it on coaching for so long before at a certain point the players just aren't good enough. And that's where the players need to be better, and then we need to have a serious conversation about how good or how not good are some of the players that have been put on the roster by Ryan Poles. And it's not a fun conversation or a fun time because this season officially sucks. Like, it's not fun to watch this team.
An interesting butterfly effect thing. There's the thing out there that Poles wanted to fire Eberflus after the Patriots game, and of course Shane Waldron was still coaching. So follow me on this. If you fired Eberflus after the Patriots, is Shane Waldron also fired? And let's say he is or isn't. At that point in time, Thomas Brown was still passing game coordinator, so he probably is not becoming head coach. And if you're probably elevating Hightower, I guess. So in theory, you could be living in a universe where you still have Hightower as your interim head coach. You have maybe still Shane Waldron as your offensive coordinator continuing out the rest of the year, unless Hightower and / Poles make the decision to move on from. It's just a very interesting thing that could have happened instead of, at least in this iteration of the actual universe, where I'm actually excited to see what happens with Thomas Brown there. I have no desire to live in that multiverse where it's Hightower and plus or minus.
Well, luckily you don't have to, but it's fun to talk about them as a comic book nerd. It's fun to talk about the parallel universes and multiverses that exist.
Exactly. X Factor for the 49ers. What do you have?
It's Brock, right? Like, I feel like that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest thing that they have still going for them right now. Debo is great, and Debo is what he is, but I think he's slower and a little bit more beat up than he has been. So the ability of Brock to create and kind of live off script, as Brock often does, I think is their X factor for them, at least to win the football game.
Yeah. I went the other way where I went on the defensive side, and I put pass rush, that they need to upset. I looked at it more like I think they'll get the points they get just because it's Kyle Shanahan and he's good, and Brock is also consistent at this point. But can you keep the Bears from scoring? And I think you do that with getting after Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with you, especially with how inconsistent the Bears' offensive line has been, to be nice about it.
That is being quite nice. X factor for the Bears. What do you have?
The X factor for the Bears. I'm trying to think of which way I can go with this, because I'm inclined to say Caleb, but that'd be the one time I can use Caleb, right?
No, that's just for the King of the North.
Oh, okay, so I'll go with Caleb for the.
Which we're again skipping because we're not doing it until they win.
Until they win, yes. So I'll use Caleb as the X factor. I don't think you move the ball much right now with how maddening the running game has been. Roshan's out. You might get a healthy dose of Demetric Felton being called up from the practice squad.
Is he in the practice squad right now still?
I
know they signed Darrison Evans.
They signed Demetric Felton too.
Look at that. All of my favorite running backs in the practice squad. Mine was end of game decision making. If the trend continues, I think the Bears are in this game in the fourth quarter, whether they're winning it or they're down by a possession or so. So end of game decision making, whether that's Caleb, whether that's your new interim head coach, And whether it's a challenge that matters, or are you going to have enough timeouts in your pocket when you need them, things like that.
I was gonna, do we have an answer as to who's doing the challenging? Because when I saw, I was watching the Thanksgiving Day game, and when that ball was separated, which hell of a play by Jonathan Owens, credit to him. It was a really good football play.
Yeah.
But just the second I saw it, I'm like, they're gonna challenge it. That's
And they're going to lose. Happen. It was your immediate.
They're going to lose because this is a stupid challenge. There's no reason to be challenging this because he's bobbling it on the way to the ground.
It was never even close. I don't understand it. All right, one last break, and then we'll hit the end of the show. Going to rapid fire them at Danny, and he's going to pick over under. Pretty straightforward. Caleb Williams passing yards, 225.
225? Over.
Isaac Garendo rushing yards, 60.
Over. Isaac Garendo's got home run speed. All it takes is one.
49ers sacks, 3.5.
Under.
Bears pre-snap penalties, 3.5.
Under. They're going to be weirdly disciplined this week.
Travis Homer, Darrington Evans / Demetric Felton carries, 4.5.
Carries or touches?
Carries.
I guess you have to say over because they're not going to give.
Do you?
DeAndre Swift.
Wait, okay.
That many.
I'm pulling something up here just to verify something. Hold on. This and that. Okay. This.
Yeah, because Darrington,
okay.
They trust Darrington. They'll give him some touches.
Okay, so in last game, which again they were down, all that stuff, but they had 15 carries total. 11 were from DeAndre Swift, and 4 were from Caleb Williams. So yes, Roshan got hurt, but you still had Homer. He got snaps, and you just chose to not give him the ball. Like, why would they all of a sudden?
You know what? I'll go under then because I forgot Homer exists.
Here's another one. I went back one more week against the Vikings. Williams had 6 rushes. Swift had 13. DJ Moore had 1, and Roshan had 2, and they were both on the goal line.
Oh man, poor Roshan and his noodle.
Like, I don't understand why they're just allergic to handing it to someone not named DeAndre when he's one of the most inefficient runners out there.
Because the idea of DeAndre is amazing. He's got over 1,000 scrimmage yards through this week.
Cool. It's all on like long. There's like 4 long runs. All right. Last pick one. It's a pick 'em. Receptions. George Kittle, Cole Kmet.
Kittle.
I thought I was almost too easy, and I was gonna do like touchdowns, but that's just too erratic. All right.
Yeah, touchdowns don't have a baseline of anything.
No. Bear gut check. We use our gut revitalized by kombucha, of course, to make game predictions against the line. Bears at 49ers in the late slot, so don't forget that. -4. I said -4. The 49ers are -4. Dude, I'm running confused.
Bears are 49ers.
49ers are -4. -4.
You know what? I think the Bears cover, if not win. I think the dead cat bounce is real. Just like you said, 2 games inside of 5 days of each other for the 49ers. Everything that's gone on. Like, it just feels like they're snowballing, and the Bears got their little
They got their little energy shot
of adrenaline, kind of, as it were. Yeah.
Packers at Lions, tonight's game. There's a couple different lines out there, but I have the Lions at -3.5 right now.
I think the Lions cover. Like,
yeah,
Matt LaFleur is really good, but Jordan Love wants to give you the football.
Didn't he have like a negative EPA per play like the last time he played?
Jordan Love. So Bears fans, you got your wish. You got a quarterback who's been paid by Green Bay, who is good, not great, and is going to give the game away at times.
Just the definition of mid.
Maybe he's a little
mid
bit
plus.
better than
I'll
that.
say mid plus.
He's mid plus, but he's not great. He's not the guy that you saw playing last year because what have I said on this show 100 times? He had the best puck luck of any quarterback I've ever seen post that Derek Carr weird year where they went to the playoffs when he was like a second-year player or whatever. And it's like every 50-50 ball he threw up ended up in his receiver's hands. Yeah. That was Jordan Love last year, where it's like he's just going to float this thing and it's going to end up in a Green Bay receiver's hands.
Well,
but
I say mid too because mid right by definition, so that's going to be like 16.
16, right?
So like I would say he is going to for the rest of his career, unless I'm shown otherwise. Vastly, in some years he'll be number 16, and some years he'll be number number 8. But like you're just gonna bounce.
So you're calling him Andy Dalton
Oh yeah, Andy Dalton with more athleticism,
and melanin.
melanin, and annoyingly aggressive on throws for some reason.
Oh, he doesn't give a fuck, dude.
Just sure, I'm gonna throw it over there. That seems about right. Falcons at. Oh, by the way, really quickly, I have a good number of patients that are Packers fans. It's amazing how many of them are already talking about. Man, should we just play Malik Willis? Like that's like those are conversations. Just so Bears fans feel just better about like where they're at. Falcons at Vikings. Vikings are favorite 5.5.
Vikings cover.
The Falcons
I think. Oh man, I like the Raheem Morris pick. I think at this point, honestly, Kirk Cousins threw an interception last week where it's like, I don't even know why you're throwing that football.
Inexplicable.
Like it's just like, what is happening right now? And they almost have to bench Kirk, right?
Yeah, you play Penix at this point.
You got to play.
You trade him in the offseason to someone. I don't care who.
Pittsburgh.
I think you don't pay Russ.
No, God no.
Well, how much is Russ? He's not going to get. He's going to get the Baker.
Listen,
deal?
You're talking to the wrong guy. I will slander Russ at any given moment.
But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe, are 5-0 against teams with a winning record. You just went out and beat one of your AFC rivals, and you're currently winning the AFC North.
He went for what, 500 yards or something, or 400 yards?
Yeah,
and like.
I am not a Russ guy. I have made that abundantly clear. I just don't know that you look your fan base in the eyes after you make the playoffs, maybe win a game in the playoffs, and say, "All right, bye, Russ."
Yeah, I am Mr. Unlimited hate for Russell Wilson.
I agree, but like we're not saying like what we think they should do, but like
honestly, heart of hearts, they probably extend him. It just depends on the number, but I don't think the Kirk Cousins to Pittsburgh idea is bad.
It isn't bad. I just think it's not swaggy enough for Tomlin. Can you imagine Tomlin coaching Kirk Cousins? Like he just gonna be like,
I couldn't picture Kirk Cousins in the most black influenced city in the nation yet.
Swaggy Kirk.
Kirk will change, baby.
We got to get to the end of the show. Seahawks at Cardinals. Bears are going to play the Seahawks the day after Christmas. Cardinals are favored 2.5.
Cardinals cover.
Okay. Yeah, the Seahawks are all up and down. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and I actually really like what Kyler's been doing and that offense has been doing in Arizona. And
hence why you have their offensive coordinator in your top 5.
I do. Even though he looks strange.
He looks like a toe. He's the human embodiment of a toe, and I can't have that at head coach. I'm sorry.
Him and Channing Tatum.
can't do it. Speaking of too, like I mentioned that the Bears game is the 26th. It's a night game. We will figure out what that looks like since technically that's a Thursday, and we're not going to preview the show before the. Maybe we will. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll get to you guys later. Let you know.
We'll do our most gooder.
Last one here, Panthers at Eagles. Eagles are favored by 12.5. I mainly put this on because I think the spread is funny and because the Panthers pick.
Bryce has been better.
Is he better enough to cover to get under that 12.5?
Dude, I don't know. For as dead in the water as I thought Sirianni was, that's a really, really good football team.
And all it needed was a swaggy white corner to just set that defense off.
And Jalen Hurts to kind of give everyone the bird again. But I think the Panthers cover, but the score might not be indicative of how badly they get their ass beat, if that makes sense. Like the Bears were only down so much in the first half to the Lions, but they were getting their ass kicked.
Yeah, 16-0 felt like it might as well have been 32-0.
Yeah. So, yeah, Panthers cover. Just Philadelphia wins in what feels like an overwhelming win.
All right, last category here, because again, we're skipping the last ones because the Bears don't deserve it. Maybe they will next week. A Coccyx and Bull Story bold predictions. What do you got?
Bold prediction. Let's go with a Tremaine Edmonds interception.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Yeah, he is good in coverage. He still offends me in the run. Like I don't want to say soft because that's disingenuous to a linebacker in the NFL because, Tremaine Edmonds could beat me up and take my lunch from me, but he is a contact adverse, enormous linebacker. So why don't we get a Tremaine Edmonds interception that maybe he even houses from Brock Purdy trying to target one George Kittle? How about that?
This is going to make some people mad. Tremaine Edmonds plays similar to what DK Metcalf does and similar to, in a way, what Chase Claypool did. They are athletic behemoths in their own right, but they don't play to their size.
100%. DK Metcalf frustrated. He doesn't fight back for the football.
Yeah. You could just sap 3 inches off him and take off 60 pounds, and he'd play the exact same way.
Right. Meanwhile, someone like Hines Ward, who was 5'10" and 200 pounds, was ready to rip your head off.
It's incredibly frustrating to watch.
I'm sorry. That's
so much potential there.
Not just him. The baddest man to ever play wide receiver in terms of scariness.
Steve Ward was so cool.
Steve Smith too, man. Those guys were awesome.
They were great. You just don't get receivers like that anymore. I'm looking at you, George Pickens. All right, my bold prediction. Thomas Brown looks like an offensive Mike Tomlin because Caleb throws for 3 touchdowns and there are only 2 pre-snap penalties.
And then he comes out of his post-game presser and say, "This is the standard. The standard is the standard."
I can't wait till you watch this because there were so many. There's like a line in particular I can't remember the exact phrase, but like it's right at the end of when they're doing like the intro and they're basically like signing off for like the Steelers section, and it's like that is such a Mike Tomlin, like just get Danny excited quote.
Oh, you don't like? It's the running joke in our group chat for the people who tune into our show that you will not besmirch Mike Tomlin in the presence of me.
The things I would do, like I know I joke too around like I don't want to trade for Kyle Shanahan. Not that I don't want to, but like stop with Kyle Shanahan talk, stop with the Stefanski talk. If you told me that I could have Mike Tomlin as the head coach of the Bears next year, tell me what I have to pay. Like, just
do you know how hard the standard would be standarding? The standard would be so standardized.
So standardized. He just does it right. This is what it is. But I guess someone could call me a hypocrite because he also has struggled with offensive coordinators in the past. But I don't know.
I mean, he made the playoffs with something named Duck playing quarterback.
He has never had a losing record. Never.
But he also hasn't won a playoff game in like a decade. So
yeah, he's also playing the freaking AFC in the AFC North and has to go to battle
with another one of the top 5 coaches in football coaching in against his biggest rival.
Yeah, twice
John
a year.
John Harbaugh is special at what he does as well. But anyway, we've yapped enough.
Yes, we are done. We're gonna wrap this up. Danny, closing thoughts.
No, not really. I guess do your best to not be as apathetic as I am about this Bears team. I'm watching to kind of inform you guys and talk with you guys, but I'm not enjoying this anymore. This sucks. This season's a waste.
My closing thoughts, the Ravens need to bring in kicking tryouts because they might need to bench Tucker.
Dude, Justin Tucker needs to be taken out to pasture.
Like, you imagine the game, you're playing in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, and Tucker misses the game-winning field goal. Like, I just see it.
I heard a stat on the Athletic Football Show the other day. They are the 30th worst kicking team in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's tough.
In terms of like EPA lost, yeah.
But don't now Eddie Pinheiro is now the most accurate kicker in NFL history.
Leave you with that, Eddie Pinheiro. Have a good one.
Starting to think that maybe the 49ers are whiners, complaining a little bit too much about the referee.